John, did you say there's nothing else you have to do with the recording when it's set? Okay, great.
Yes, you're good.
Oh, John, you were going to send me a slide about raising hand instructions. You did that. I see it now. Okay. Hi, everyone. We'll get started soon. Just going to give a few minutes for folks to come in, get settled. We'll just give it maybe one more minute. Okay. We can go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. I know we're in a webinar setting on Zoom, which you may or may not have experienced before. It has some slightly more limited options. It means that we can't see everyone all in one group, but I see there are 15 of you here right now. I'm so grateful that you're all with us. My name is Allison Maurer. I am with the City of Somerville. I'm the planner of ecological restoration, and I am the project manager for this particular project, this open space and recreation plan update. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. While we are going through this presentation, or at any point, if you have any technical questions, you should be able to send John Braunenkant a message. I'm going to have him introduce himself in just a second, but just a heads up that that is an option for you. So here we are. This is our third community visioning session, a little different than our first two. We are here virtual, and also we are going to be talking about the community feedback that we have already received, give you a sense of what we're finding from that, and we're trying to do a little temperature check to see if you all agree with what we're hearing, if you have any additional comments. If you weren't able to attend a virtual session, then this is your chance to voice those comments as well. So we have a couple of staff people here from, all three of us are from public space and urban forestry. So again, I'm the planner of ecological restoration. I work on projects like the Pollinator Action Plan and this plan, also the Glen Park Community Garden. Louisa?
Hi all, I am Luisa Oliveira, and I'm the Director of Public Space and Urban Forestry. We're a team of 7, all trained in landscape architecture or arboriculture and ecology.
And John?
Hi, everyone. My name is John Braunenkant. I am a public space planner for the PSF division. I am a project manager who focuses on the Dilboy Auxiliary Fields as well as 217 Somerville Ave, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So our agenda for today is I'll give you a brief little introduction to what is an OSRP. If you haven't been to one of the meetings already, if you aren't familiar, this will just give you a quick sense. We'll talk a little bit about the last OSRP's goals, and then I'll run through the public outreach findings and the draft goals that we're starting to hone from all of those findings. Then we'll just open it up for comments. The way that you will voice your comments is by using the raise hand feature. You can find that under the reactions tab, or you can write your questions and comments in the chat as well. John will be monitoring the chat for us as we go along. But just know that we're going to open up comments and questions once we've finished the presentation. So hang on to those thoughts until after then. So what is an OSRP? I have this little banner thing that is right in the way of my text, but I think we'll just make do. So this is a tool for planning the future of conservation and recreation resources. It's actually a state mandated document. In order to qualify to apply for certain grants, we have to have an active approved OSRP on file. This is true across the state. And it's an opportunity for us to really evaluate what's going on with our parks, with our conserved lands, everything from athletic fields to a plaza to, Foss Park, waterfront access, all of those things. It's going to look really different in different cities. If you, think of like the Middlesex Fells would have they would have a whole different kind of OSRP. Our open space and recreation plan is focused on a very specific Somerville kind of picture. So it really reflects public participation, this plan. So it's a chance for us to touch base with the public, see what you all need, how things are going with open space and recreational programs. It also describes the city historically trends from the past and today, and it sets goals for the next 7 years. So we'll revamp this plan 7 years from now. That was last done in 2016. And so it's, no small deal. There are certainly changes that are made along the way across those 7 years when things come up but it is a chance for us to say, our community is saying these things are really important, and we want to reflect that in this document. So as I said, it goes through a lot of different stuff. Some of that is regional history, geology, environmental challenges like brownfields. But what we're focused on today is trying to understand from you all the sections that describe community vision for Somerville, community needs, and then the goals and objectives, which turn into an action plan with many different points in it in a table format. And so just to give you a sense, the 2016 OSRP had 7 overarching goals. They were to acquire more land to align with our summer vision goals, to renovate existing parks, particularly the ones in poor condition, to develop an urban forestry plan, to work with other city departments to improve maintenance practices, to continue to improve access to parks for persons with disabilities and the elderly, to continue to incorporate sustainable design responses in response to climate change, and to use data to update our priority lists and our parks. At that time, what felt very important was athletic fields and community gardens. So it resulted in this complex table of sub-action points under all of those goals. You can find the last OSRP online. John will pop that link into the chat. You can also use your phone to capture the QR code or write down that website. But this is just an example of one of those goals and how it gets broken down into sub-tasks with a responsible lead person identified, possible funding source. So this is a way for us to try to get very action oriented. We're not quite at that action level yet. We're still at the sort of overarching goals place, but this is where it will go eventually. So some of those goals, we did take some steps toward them. Some of them we even completed fully. We worked toward adding new acres of open space to our Somerville roster. We added around 6 acres since 2016. There have been major additions like the community path extension, and this is an ongoing priority identified in the Summer Vision Plan, and we keep thinking about it, and we will keep thinking about it. There were major renovations done on schoolyards, particularly the ones that were in the poorest condition. We've now made really big strides in getting schoolyards into better shape. We updated a lot of athletic fields because that was one of the priorities in the OSRP identified by our community at that time. We published the Urban Forestry Management Plan, and we worked on, sorry, this light is on a timer and it turns off sometimes. And we've set up a few proactive maintenance programs to help foster a healthy canopy in the city. You can find this Urban Forest Management Plan on the internet, also a QR code that'll take you right to there, where you can write down the link, though the link is a little much. You can also just Google Urban Forest Management Plan Somerville and you'll find it. It's a really big, interesting, thorough document, talks about a lot of things that are critical to keeping our canopy healthy. We worked really hard on it and are very proud of it. And you know, it'll help us develop a healthy canopy for decades to come. So we are starting over, essentially. You know, we sort of take that information, we update it, and then we do a new community process trying to understand what's different about now, what we need to update, what we need to change. We've done a few different things. We did a survey, just closed this week. We got 701 responses, which is great. It was pretty evenly distributed between each ward, which I feel happy about. Most responses were from people between 25 and 54. Only 3.8% of the respondents were under 18 and 6.4% over 65. We're doing some additional kind of focus groups, stakeholder meetings to see if we can flesh out the feedback that we're getting from those other age groups. Half of the responses were from households with children. 82.2% of respondents identified as white. 43 people did not self-identify and 33 skipped the question. So, you know, this is a persistent problem with community process, is that we don't tend to reach the most diverse audience. We try to use a series of tactics that our Office of Immigrant Affairs has been helping develop with us to reach residents who might not be inclined to take a survey, but we're trying to get feedback from folks in a variety of different ways. So, it's not ideal for us, but I feel like we got a bunch of information this way, and we're trying to flesh it out with other kind of more person-to-person communication. So just to give you a couple cents of some of the findings, we asked if people felt like they had access to nature. There was a kind of split between yes and no. And I wonder about how many people are leaving Somerville, and that makes them feel like they have access to nature. But, I think there's room to grow in helping people feel like they have access to nature. Resounding yes, that Somerville still needs more open space. So that's a nice confirmation that that goal is still important to folks. What do people do most often in our open spaces? Primarily walking, social gatherings, sitting and relaxing, and visiting playgrounds. And this is in line with the result that we found from what we need more of in Somerville, which is that people want trails and paths, passive parks for sitting and gathering, and access to the waterfront. And, this is really helpful information for us to understand that the community is very interested in passive recreation. And passive recreation, means, let's see, maybe it's easier to explain from the active recreation side. You can think of sports fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, places where you are engaged in a program, in a team sport, that sort of thing. Passive recreation could be anything from taking a stroll to laying down, reading a book, sitting, things that are restorative and relaxing. And I feel like it's very helpful to understand that the community is telling us that they want more of that kind of recreation. We also had 2 community meetings. We broke up into discussion groups, or had a discussion as a large group. We talked about play and recreation, natural and restorative spaces, climate resiliency in parks, and urban agriculture. And the big picture findings, just to give you kind of an overarching sense, is that there's a lot of interest in increasing accessibility. I'm saying accessibility in kind of the broadest sense of the term. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But accessibility of all kinds, really a desire for more nature, more interaction with nature, more plants, an interest in variety, an interest in comfort, particularly as temperatures increase, as climate change increases our, sort of the extremes of highs and lows, increased awareness of programs that exist, of the spaces that are out there, the amenities that are out there, and a desire for more program options. There was a lot of feedback about programs that fill up fast, sports fields that fill up fast, and so just more options for people to be able to access them. And I'm going to break this down into a few different categories and go into some of these more details. So, and I just want to say before I do this, we're looking on feedback for all of this. So as I go through them, if you have thoughts, comments, notes, jot them down, try to remember them so that when we open this back up for comments, that there's a lot in here so that you can return to your thought. I'll have a couple slides with the summaries of them as well, but just note your comment as we're going along. So a few things with regard to open space in general. I think it's pretty clear that we should continue to take opportunities to acquire new open space, both private and public. So just to note, the city is actively looking for new open space parcels that we can use. It's a complex puzzle because we also need more housing. Some buildings need to be renovated. There's lots of competing interests, but we're always looking for new open space parcels that are appropriate. And we also get public space through private development. This is as a result of our 2019 zoning code. So if this is not something that you're aware of, we're getting a bunch of new pocket parks online, plazas online in this sort of past year, and in coming years, there's more to come that is creating park space through leveraging our zoning code and through private development. So there's a lot to happen there. The other things that we're hearing is that you want us to protect the open space that we already have, that we should prioritize variety. So having spaces that are multifunctional, that are serving multi-ages, so not just, amenities for the playground age group, but for adults, for seniors, for little kids. You're saying that we should be looking for opportunities to enhance and increase passive recreation opportunities, like I mentioned, and to foster an experience of nature. We've heard a desire to create a sense of connection between open spaces. So this is like, you know, from walking from your house to a park or from one park to another, that there is something along the way that is making that experience pleasurable and comfortable, and increasing awareness of those amenities with signage. And that could be through mobility changes or through vegetation on the street, or again, signage. And then thinking about open space in relation to neighboring towns and rivers, etc. So what can we do within the confines of Somerville in order to support the ecology of the Mystic River, of the Charles River, of, you know, downstream, and, you know, our neighbor in Cambridge, Medford, etc. The other big category I wanted to identify was comfort and climate resilience. We heard again and again that cool, comfortable spaces are really important to our residents. So increasing shade in parks and between parks, for your routes to the parks, between the parks, all of that, so that it's cooler. Adding more water fountains and water bottle fillers, increasing biodiversity in plantings, transforming hot paved surfaces into vegetation or grass to decrease the temperature, continuing to use parks for stormwater capture to reduce the pressure of flooding on the city, engaging the community to participate in caring for vegetated spaces. There's a lot of interest in, you know, how can we participate? And I think there are things to come there. The Pollinator Action Plan is going to be proposing some things. It's just a small plug for that project. We'll be proposing some things next summer or so for ways that residents can participate in increasing habitat. And there are also programs like the Adopt a Tree program, where when we plant new trees, we are inviting residents to participate in caring for that tree to help it to establish well. And some people don't know that program exists. And so increasing the amount of promotion we do for those kinds of programs, increasing ways that we are encouraging residents to partake in that, is one thing that we were asked for. Slightly in line with that is just increasing nature in the city. A lot of demand for more trees, more trees, more trees. That's great. That's something that we really care about too. Prioritizing projects that increase access to natural areas. You know, this is slightly limited in a small, highly developed city. We won't be able to ever have a Middlesex Fells in Somerville, but I think we've really heard that there is a desire for nature in Somerville. And so how can we do that within the confines of our borders, and in this highly developed landscape? And that includes also interaction with wildlife. So, you know, increasing places where there's opportunities for education or citizen science programs, or just bird watching, natural enjoyment of wildlife, increasing biodiversity and habitat for wildlife, increasing our capacity to maintain our plantings. So that's a desire from residents for us to increase the way that we care for plants, to promote and develop programs to involve the public in planting and care on private and public property. So that's what I just mentioned earlier. To vegetate spaces between parks, there's been a lot of interest in, you know, how we can just increase the amount of vegetation along our streets or on plazas, places that are normally paved. How do we just up the number of plants that are around? The next category I wanted to call out is accessibility. So this covers a lot of things, and you can see I put in a lot more little bubbles because there were lots of points that people made. It covers a lot of different things, but I will say that, you know, there are some great patterns of ensuring accessible routes to parks so that we have handicap spaces near parks, that walking routes to parks are prioritized so that they are accessible for different mobility limitations. Making sure each neighborhood has a variety of open spaces for different ages, adding accessible play structures to playgrounds, addressing trash and cleanliness issues, ensuring seating is available for rest, addressing the impacts of large roads that reduce access to the waterfront and large parks. That's long-term planning, but it's also important for us to know that this continues to be an important thing for people, so we can think of, okay, how do we make those connections across 93, across 16, so that people can really enjoy and use the water effectively to enjoy the nature that we do have, given some of those structural limitations. Address pedestrian, bike, and traffic conflicts. Review lighting practices in parks to ensure they are equitably usable. Lots of debate about, we want spaces for dogs, we want spaces without dogs. This is something we're trying to juggle. We've got 81,000 people in Somerville, lots of dogs, lots of interest and passion for dogs. So we're trying to figure out how we best support our non-human companions in the city, while also creating safe and accessible places for people who are looking for spaces without dogs. Bathrooms, heard that a lot. Increasing signage and awareness of open spaces and amenities. So maybe there isn't a bathroom in the park, but helping people be aware of where there might be bathrooms nearby. And that's it for that category. The next one is program improvements. We've heard a bunch about wanting more all-season programs. Those could be recreational programs or just spaces that are usable outside in all seasons. There's a desire for us to sort of re-examine the community garden program to explore opportunities to benefit residents more. This could be creating areas that are more open and not split up between individual beds designated for one person, or increasing the amount of garden space that we have, which is something we've been working on, and I will point you all to the Glen Park Community Garden expansion, which we're working on right now. That'll add 18 garden beds this year. But there's certainly a lot of interest in community garden, so we're trying to hear from you all about what's important to you there. Activating our existing spaces with programs, get people out to them, get people aware of them. Examining program registration systems to ensure that they are equitably accessible. There's been some talk of that the registration process itself has some accessibility limitations, and so this is something we're passing on to the Parks and Rec folks to help them understand that there's some desire from the community to address that system. We've heard that you'd like us to look for opportunities to add fitness equipment in parks, especially for seniors. There's been some interest in options for non-permitted spontaneous programs, particularly on fields. An interest in recreational program offerings since they fill up very quickly, and generally just an increase in awareness about those open spaces and programs that are out there. I think I heard a lot of survey responses that people didn't know those programs existed, and now they did, and that's great, but getting the word out there more. Equity is the last one that I'll talk about. And this one is partly things that we've noticed through this process, things we sort of knew before and are getting a little more clear on as well. And so we would like to learn from who we don't see at community meetings and learn how to increase our the representation of folks in the design and planning process related to open spaces. We want to take lessons that we learn here and apply them to future park design outreach plans. We do outreach for every new park project that we implement. And so John just finished one for the 217 Somerville Ave project. And it's an opportunity for us every time to sort of take what we've done here, build on it, help us understand what's wanted and needed for that particular park parcel. And there are lessons that we can take from this process of how to do that better, how to reach more people, how to learn more of what folks want in that area for those more specific projects. Increase awareness of how community feedback turns into actions. We just want there to be an increased awareness of, we take your feedback, we're trying to understand what our community wants, and then that turns into action. Sometimes it's not always clear how it gets from one place to another. So creating more transparency around that journey from point of feedback giving to action. We want to encourage as much civic participation as we can. And so increasing transparency there. Continuing to analyze park and tree distribution across the city to make sure that it is equitably distributed so that we don't have any areas that are, less vegetated than others, particularly in areas that have been historically, more vulnerable or where there has been less investment in the past. Continuing to kind of look at that equitable distribution. We want to increase coordination between departments and commissions to ensure that committees like our disabilities committee, that they are involved in the planning and vetting and evaluation of parks so that we better understand what accessibility needs are, and including teens and tweens in public space planning. We know that there is a desire for more spaces for teens in particular. We don't hear from them that often in public process. And so we would really like to find ways to connect more with teens to get a sense of what they need and what they want. So I am going to open at this point back up to, I know this page is a little much, but I just tried to get all of the text from those other ones onto 2 slides here. And I want to open this up for comments now. We have a bunch of time here just to sort of hear from you all about, your responses to what I've just gone through. If there are any additional comments that I haven't raised that you think is really important to, our open space and recreational programming picture in Somerville that we haven't covered, this is a great chance for you to raise it. We want to know, do you agree with these statements? Do they seem right on? Do you think that this is the right track? And is there any additional information that you want to give us to help us understand the community needs around these different topics a little bit better? So at this point, if anyone wants to raise their hand, if they have a comment, now's the time.
And I just want to remind everyone that the raise hand feature is at the bottom of the Zoom screen. It's under the reactions tab, or you might actually just see a raise hand feature. And then you can also type in your comments into the chat feature as well.
And if you have any questions about what I've just said, you can also ask questions I can clarify. Or any questions about the process, happy to clarify that. Laura Beretsky.
Right, it looks like we have, Allison, I don't believe I have
you can't do it.
the
Okay, great.
administrative privileges. So I believe if you just right click,
Okay.
there should be the.
I think I'm good. Hi, Laura, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a question about something very specific and not the overall presentation. I hope that's okay. My first thought is I really liked the comment or the bubble you had about make sure to hear from folks who are not here, because and I know that's not easy. But my specific question is about the land over on Endicott Street behind Met and Young Field, because one of the things you had on there was land acquisition, and so there's that plot of land that I know is there's a big question mark about what's going to happen to it, but that land on Endicott is in Somerville, and I just was wondering if there's been much talk at the city about what could happen there, what could happen with that.
Yeah, I think the story about Matanon is one that is way above my pay grade, unfortunately, and I can't really report many details about it. I can tell you that the city is certainly, would love to have that land, and it would be a great addition to our, open space inventory. It's a pretty special opportunity, but I'm not sure where things stand on it at this very moment. I know it's like very much in process, and so I don't have any good updates for you, unfortunately. But just know that we all would really love for that to become part of our picture of open space in Somerville. Yeah, I'm sure that's not a very satisfying answer, but that's the best I can do.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, I think we've got Carol. Hey, John, so you can't, if I Okay, Laura, I'm gonna lower your hand, but if you have another question, feel free to raise your hand again.
Listen, if it's easier to, you could also promote me to the host
Yeah,
and I
okay.
can share the screen if you just want
Great.
to answer those questions.
I can do that, yeah.
Okay. You might actually still be able to share your screen. Perfect.
Okay, I just did it.
Okay, and it looks like you're still sharing your screen.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
All right, Carol, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak. Carol, are you there? It looks like you're still muted if you're trying to unmute.
There you go.
I don't know.
We can hear you
There
now.
we go. We can hear you now.
The other day, I saw a red fox in my backyard. And I was wondering if we have any idea about what is living out there. Red fox,
Just in terms of like wildlife, what we've got in Somerville?
yes.
That is a good question. I think we have not done, from what I understand, an inventory of wildlife in recent years. Um, we are, for the pollinator action plan, we are doing a bunch to understand what the pollinator community is in the city, and I'm gonna try to pull up a link here. One just sort of, general resource is iNaturalist. You can search by location to see what wildlife is around, what people have spotted, and you can report wildlife that you've seen. This is one of the big resources that we're using to understand what the pollinator population is in Somerville, what species we have, who we don't have. And it's a great resource. It's not perfectly scientific. This is citizen science. It's, anyone can post an observation. But knowing that there's a fox in Somerville is great information. Would be lovely to post there. But yeah, we have some sort of historic information that's in our last OSRP that talks about wildlife. One thing that, we also sort of consider that there are species in neighboring towns that could potentially come into Somerville. But we don't have a current inventory of larger animals, other than this iNaturalist information, which is quite impressive too. So I would take a look at that.
Thank you very much, Carol. All right, so the next person is Suzanne. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Susan.
Hello, hi, this is Suzanne. I thought I would I would speak the question I wrote in the chat, maybe to open up a topic that we might not have gotten to, but there's a whole huge area to the north and west of Somerville along Route 16 and crossing over to Dilboy, which you mentioned, John, is part of your portfolio. So I would love to know if improving access to all the residents that live along that area and creating opportunities, not just for the facilities that are already there, but of what can we make of the fact that we are so close to that quite enormous green space, and make it more a part of the city. And then wondering if Somerville could give any thought to doing what they do on Memorial Drive. In fact, to create some activities along there, maybe closing it off on 1 or 2 Sundays per summer. So I just wanted to open that topic.
Thanks, Suzanne. I think that, it's great to hear you confirm that you are also interested and concerned about the access across Route 16. This is something we're talking a bit with the mobility division here about as well. They, as part of their sort of planning process, they are looking at access to parks as one of the things that helps them prioritize where they're doing mobility projects. And so, you know, continuing to tell them that it's important for our residents to be able to cross these major roadways like Route 16 in order to access open space
Yeah.
amenities is a great thing for us to do here. And it's good to have confirmation that that is important to you. I can't say exactly what those plans are. I don't know those plans as well as they do, but it is something that I will try to include in this document. Is I will check in with them and try to clarify what those plans, what their proposals are currently, what they're imagining for the future, and how we might be able to improve that. And it's something we can write in as a priority here. Memorial Ave Drive like closure would be lovely. It's out of my control, but I can pass on a note that that would be something that is desired.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. All right, William, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I didn't know I was there as William. I thought I was Bill, but anyways, okay. I'm interested in the fact that I've noticed, and I didn't bring this up when I was at the other meeting, that there's nothing in the plan that deals with invasive species eradication or control. And I would love to see a strong program coming from Parks and Recreation or from the city where we try to build a partnership with all of our residents in educating and working on this problem, both having the city do things and also teaching people about these species and how damaging they are to our environment. We have things like those really terrible worms, the ones that squiggle all over the place that kill the
Big
soil,
worms, I think. Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. I don't even have to list them. Everybody knows them. Especially dog strangler vine on every chain link fence you can find.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that point. Yeah, well noted. I think also, Bill, I'm trying to remember if we talked a little bit about this at the first meeting that you know, there are some programs that we have where we're trying to get word out about black swallowwort, things like that. And it's good confirmation to know that we should keep doing that, and we could, you know, try to get the word out even more. I think I appreciate the desire to get the community involved. You know, given limited staff capacity, you know, we don't have the staff to go out and eradicate it ourselves, but as a community, there's a lot more that we can do. So I appreciate your point there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, I do not see any other hands raised at the time. If anyone
a
else
couple
has
questions in the chat, I think.
Yes, I will shift over to the chat. It seems like we were able to answer Susan's comment about Dilboy Field. So we'll move on to the next question by Karen that says, thanks for all this work. I missed filling out the survey, but wanted to put in a vote for more tennis courts, but also an easier system to use than the Park and Rec site for reservations. It is difficult to understand, and reservations seem to have to be made during business hours and with advanced notice. That's not great for actual use because I might want to just decide on a Saturday morning that I want to play on a Sunday if weather is nice.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that point. Yeah, that's great information, and we can pass that along to Recreation. Confirm some thoughts we've heard already about website improvements that the rec system needs. And a desire for more spontaneity potentially in being able to make choices. So that's something that I think we can try to talk through with them, figure out what those possibilities might be, and we can pass those notes along. I have also heard from other people that tennis courts are something they would like. So that confirms that as well. Thank you.
The next question is from Zachary. Sorry if I missed this since I joined late, but is there the possibility of increasing the availability of and signage directing people to public bathrooms around parks, in addition to smaller scale things like drinking fountains?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's great. And I think also echoes some other comments we've heard. That's excellent to hear confirmation of that. One thing I wonder about, and Zachary, if you'd like to speak to this, you can, or you can post in the chat. I wonder about the desire for signs versus like a handheld map that we could try to distribute, or web information, and what might be the most useful. If you have a thought on that, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Or anyone else, if you have a thought on that.
You know, Ashley just responded to that saying signs make way more sense. And then Zachary said, personally, I think signage at parks would be the most beneficial.
Great. Signage.
And then, so the next chat is from Leanne. It says, what parks have stormwater capture? Is there a list? Do they ever overflow? Is that water only rainwater, or is it waste overflow also? Storm precipitations are increasing. Are we prepared?
Great question. John's actually probably more prepared than I am to talk about that. He's been working on an inventory. Louisa also has been very involved in the planning and construction administration of parks with stormwater capture systems in them, like Lincoln Park and Conway. So does one of you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. We're trying to include stormwater management within all of our parks as we're redesigning them. With Somerville being such a dense and not porous site, we are trying to deal with all of our stormwater in the best ways possible, and creating like a multifunctional landscape in our parks is really one of the best ways that we can accomplish this. We are currently working on updating our green stormwater infrastructure website, which we hope to have released in the next month. And on that web page, there'll be a section about stormwater within our parks, which will list out all the different parks that have green infrastructure within them, and also kind of give some quantities to how much stormwater they're dealing with and kind of what benefits they have. So keep your eyes peeled for that in the coming months.
And my understanding is that it's just rainwater that's in those storage systems,
Oh,
that it
yes.
isn't part of the combined sewer system. So
yes,
just
entirely
just
stormwater. Yeah, there's no sewage in our infiltrating in our parks.
I would also note that, are we prepared is a good question, and who knows, but there are much larger projects like the Poplar Street pump station project, which is under the Art Farm site. So if you have wondered why the Art Farm has been stalled, it is a lot to do with trying to manage flooding in East Somerville, and trying to prepare us for storm events by establishing a very large stormwater capture system underneath what will at one point be the Art Farm Park, in order to help mitigate some of that flooding. So lots of things happening all across the city. Part of the reason that you're seeing so much construction on the streets is stormwater improvement projects. And so, yeah.
And I think another win for us is one of our newest pops that opened up on Lake Street. There used to be a lot of flooding that was on Lake Street, and there's some stormwater systems underneath that park. And for the first time during one of the most recent storms, Lake Street did not flood. So that is wonderful news that the park is dealing with that stormwater.
Can I add a couple more things just on the green infrastructure point? I think what John is saying is very important, that we do, the biggest opportunity for us to get more acreage is through our development parcels, and we are always trying, we have a hydrological model, and we are always trying to put in interventions that are going to help with flooding, knowing that with climate change, we're getting more and more extreme weather events and water events. The second thing is we have for a long time now, parks are one of the positive climate change resiliency tools, in that we're able to store stormwater and slow it down. We are able to plant a lot of trees. We're able to create habitat. We're able to create shade. So we very much think of our park designs as working landscapes that are trying to solve some of these problems that we're going to see more of as the climate changes. So super excited that you guys are as excited about that as we are.
Right, and let me move on to the next question or comment. This is from Valerie. Good evening, and thank you for doing this. I also missed the survey, but would love to emphasize desire for passive use natural areas and improved connectivity between green spaces. I'm also against dedicating a lot of space for use by dogs, but I think it is important to have some such areas to give dog owners some places to go.
Thank you, Valerie.
The next comment or question is from Chris. I'm not sure if this counts as an open space topic or not, but I've been thinking that it would be nice to make the community path more of a destination in itself by encouraging things like food trucks, maybe coffee, ice cream, sandwiches, etc., shops next to it. I like the idea of encouraging the development of great places for people to congregate, which are primarily for people on foot / bike, not cars. For example, near Brick Bottom, Maxwell's Green, etc., as well as possible future path extensions such as Grand Junction.
Great. Yeah, I think, programming is one of the things we consider, how we enliven these spaces. So I think that's very relevant. I think also one thing that we will see in the coming years is the, private development that will be resulting in some open space along the community path. So we hope that there will be increased areas for congregation around there in the future. And there might be some need for some, more in the near term future efforts like what you're talking about. So yeah, lovely comment. Thank you.
And another comment that ties into the community path extension is Karen said that more shade on the path extension is so needed.
Great. Yeah.
So just a couple things on the community path. One, Somerville Junction is an active construction site. So we hope to have that done in a couple more construction seasons. So that will be a welcome relief as you're moving through. And with the path extension, people are not as happy with that part of the path as they are with the part that came before. But just a reminder that we don't really control that. Like the path was put in, finished to connect in an area where there isn't much space. And so that does make the parks like Somerville Junction, some of the areas in Brick Bottom where there will be stops and access all the more important. But it is very hard, especially because on the railroad right of way, we are not allowed to plant trees to create some of that comfort. So we do have to focus on the stopping areas and the green spaces along it that will really help not only to get a break, but to get water and to get shade and, to get an ice cream or a food truck. And so we do have meetings with developers, and this is something that we stress all the time, to kind of think about the residents and who are using these spaces. And along the community path, it's clear that we need to push them to help with the movement that's happening there and to get people to stop.
So the next comment I see is from Bill saying the city should continue to encourage outdoor eating spaces that allow for dogs.
Also,
Ashley,
Zachary made a comment about public restrooms available, new public restrooms in parks, near parks where there aren't currently any. Great.
And then Ashley says, in regards to access for all ages, it would be great to see some additional toddler-focused playgrounds or toddler-sized equipment additions to existing spaces. The younger kiddos need some safe spaces to play too.
Okay, yeah.
I see a few additional comments about adding more shade to the community path. Or maybe some other plantings along the community path. And then there's a
We
comment from
are
Karen.
also
Sorry.
exploring one of the participatory budgeting projects that was voted on by the city residents was to install some artificial shade structures. We're exploring options, places for that right now. It'll also be an opportunity for us to test out a kind of structure and see if it works, you know, if it's something we can do elsewhere. So we are thinking about artificial shade in, you know, where it might be needed most in the city in order to implement that participatory budgeting piece. So just know that that's coming as well.
Oh, sorry, just a clarification. When Allison says artificial shade, she means not from trees, but from an actual structure.
Yeah. Real shade, not fake shade.
Karen then says, I heard there could maybe be canopies put over in some sections, though maybe that idea didn't work out.
Is that in regard to the community path, maybe?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Yep.
Chris then says, a while ago, Jake Wilson proposed solar canopies that could provide both shade, rain shelter, but also power for lighting at night. That seems like a good idea. And then Michelle said it would be great to have more tables for people to picnic, gather, and or get takeout food from local businesses.
Michelle, any particular areas that you're thinking of, or just in general? Yeah, anything?
Michelle, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, everyone. I was just thinking sort of in general at just all parks and in Somerville, just being able to hang out with friends. It's like I'll want to go to like Powderhouse Park, and it's like there isn't enough picnic tables to have a nice picnic there if I'm bringing it something from home or something from across the street. Yeah, because in Davis Square, there's some areas for seating there, but like not a lot. And it's great to have like the outdoor dining, but so much is tied to like a private business. So if you could just grab food and be able to walk from there to go and grab them, because sometimes in Davis there isn't enough seating there, or just thinking about like parks. Yeah, I'm over in Spring Hill and there are picnic tables there and I do see people picnicking, but there could be more people who enjoy picnics.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then Zachary just said, +1, Michelle. I was excited to hear the Junction Park redesign was planned to include more space for that or instance.
Yeah, bunch of seating coming in Junction Park for sure. And I think, yeah, along the community path, that's very important to be able to have a place to rest. And I think we're also hearing from a bunch of folks that, you know, who aren't little kids, who don't want playground structures necessarily, but are looking for places to enjoy sitting in parks. And so great to have confirmation of that. Natural canopy structures to grow plants on for shade. I see that comment. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I think generally more shade is a big theme that we're seeing as temperatures get hot in the summers. Yeah, it's I think exploring all shade options and seeing what works is going to be important going forward. I just changed the slide to show the accessibility and equity points. If anybody has any more thoughts about those that they want to say, we touched on a lot of great things. We've got another 15 minutes or so if folks have other thoughts or questions. There are 20 of you here. Thank you so much for being here.
We got another comment from Michelle saying winter plant interest too. parks are boring in the winters without snow.
No, I do love a park with snow. Thank you for that. Yeah, as we seem to get a little bit less snow than we used to, plants as winter interest is a nice idea.
Or we could have just asked for more snow too. That might be harder for you guys to deliver on. Winter plant interest. might
That's
be-
a little harder, sure,
Yeah.
maybe. I wish.
Appreciate any effort.
One thing on that I think is also maybe interesting to this group is that with the pollinator action plan that Allison is working on, we have a team of scientists, horticulturalists, and landscape architects looking at not only plants that are creating habitat throughout the year, but also what those plants do. So, for example, the grasses, like we no longer cut grasses in the winter because insects lay eggs in there. So this is kind of an exciting time to be thinking about habitat and specifically native plantings and plantings in parks. So we hope to have some very good recommendations from that plan, and it should be finished sometime this summer. And we will have some public meetings about it if you want to learn about it. There's also a page on the Summer Voice page, which if you all don't know about it, there's a million projects on Summer Voice.
Yeah, Summer Voice is a great hub for learning about this project, updates to this project, and also other city planning projects, construction projects, that sort of thing. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Priorities, things that are missing in our open space network that we haven't covered already, or things that you agree with about what we should be prioritizing in our open space network or our recreational programs. Childcare spaces. Ashley, can you say a little bit more about that? Are you thinking in open spaces or programs? Maybe you're typing too. I'll give you a sec. Gotcha. Yeah. Great. Other spaces. Well, I'll let you all just think for a second, and I'll just sort of give you one more sense of, where we're at in our process right now. So we've done these 2 in-person community meetings. We did the survey. We did this virtual meeting. At this point, we're trying to finish up some focus groups, stakeholder meetings, and then we'll be trying to take all of this feedback that we've gotten from everyone and hone it into the action plan that has those overarching goals and all of these sub-objectives and action items with a responsible lead, potential funding source, all of that. So it's going to take us a little bit to figure all that out. We have to do, some more sifting through the survey data to get into the finer grain stuff. If there are, we still have time though for you to share any comments if you haven't already today. So tentative date for a completed plan is mid-February, probably late February. We will post the plan on the Summer Voice page. John, do you mind pulling out that Summer Voice link and popping it in the chat as well?
Yes.
I think it's also on the next slide, but so we'll be looking for comments on that draft plan in its entirety as well. It's a big document, but you can always sift through, look for the action plan, or you can read a particular section of interest to you. And I think, we will be looking for feedback into early March probably. So just keep an eye on the Summer Voice page. If you aren't already on our mailing list, our email list, you can shoot us an email, tell us you'd like to be. You can contact me directly. There's my email address. and the Summer Voice page, which John just put in the chat as well. That will have this slideshow. It'll have additional, more final, like the draft plan itself when we're looking for comments on that. That will be up there. So that's sort of the hub for all things open space and recreation planning. I think we also, yeah.
We
go
got
ahead, John.
one more comment. So from Candace, I joined late, but was hoping in particular to learn about recreation department plan and where/if that fits into this overall parks and open space effort. I know they are different.
Great question. So this plan talks about recreational programming and open spaces. We technically have those two different things kind of housed in different departments. So we're working with the Parks and Rec department in this process. So all of the information that we're getting from our survey about recreational programs, everything we're hearing from these meetings, we're passing on. We've had Parks and Rec representatives at both of the in-person community meetings, and we're passing notes on from this meeting to them. So anything related to programs you want, things that would make you use programs more, barriers that you've found to using those programs. We want to know about all of that in this program, in this plan itself. So the plan really focuses on open space and how it analyzes the city, but it is also an opportunity for us to see what the needs are related to programs. And for us to lay all of that out. So it will be in this plan too. And we are in communication with them. So if you've got thoughts that you want to say about that, this is a great time for you to do so, or you can email me, or you can post it to that Summer Voice page. There's a little questions and comments tab. You can always put it there as well.
And there was one more question that came in, which is, I think, a good summary question. How is this plan going to be used, and are some parts binding?
So it is not a binding document, but it is a place for us to point to when we are looking to complete projects, when we are looking to prioritize projects, if we're looking for funding for things, we can say, our community said this was really important. It's important for us to do this first, or for us to prioritize this piece, or, you know, it's a way for us to kind of give directives both to our department, to other departments, you know, for things related from everything from, you know, park planning to mobility, like we talked about with issues with crossing Route 16 or 93 to get to those open spaces. So there's a lot of different departments in the city that look to this document for some direction for how they get parks, how they get projects funded, or how they prioritize those projects. It's a great resource. It is not a binding document, but it is one that we try to adhere to, because, you know, this is sort of our moment to plan for the next 7 years, and so we take it seriously, and we, you know, want to use this information to the best of our ability. And so, you know, maybe not every single item will be 100% complete by the time we reach that 7-year mark when we're doing this again, but it is a good way for us to see how we're doing along the way, for us to check back in with our goals that our community helped us to set at these particular moments. And you know, things come up along the way, of course, but we do our best to sort of adhere to what we learn now for those next 7 years.
I will add also just one more thing, that we do take this plan seriously, and it is a way to guide our work. When we go back and look at the 2016, we've achieved almost every single one of those goals. So it's not legally binding in any way, but it is taken pretty seriously and does guide our work.
I see Bill asked what grade we give the previous plan. Louisa wrote it. She's on the call, so, you know, but I do think it's a very good plan. You know, when I first came to work for the city, it was a really great resource for me for getting to know what the, you know, kind of history of the city, the history of development. It's a great resource. It's also helpful to understand what is important to the community, what the priorities are here. So it's just a good reference document. And I think, when you come in sort of late in the game, it's hard to understand what that 7-year picture was, but it gives you like 7 years ago picture, but it gives you a little glimpse into that moment in time, what was important, and you can see how far you've come. So, yeah, it's a good document.
It's also not static because we have community meetings with every one of our projects. And, when we're developing policies or working on other things, we're researching, what's going on. So I hear rumors too that it is held up as a model for open space plans. So we try our best.
We work very hard on it. Even if not that many people read it, we do work very hard on it. Anybody else have any other comments? Thank you everyone for coming. If you're taking off, I appreciate you being here. Remember, you can always email me. You can always post questions on that Summer Voice page, comments. Survey is closed, but that doesn't mean that that just allows us to analyze data. It doesn't mean that we're not accepting more comments. So.
You are also welcome to interact on the Summer Vision page. We have an Instagram account for those of you who are inclined to social media, and try to keep that up to date, letting people know what's happening, reposting some of the rec events. And you can always reach out to any of us or to the 311 through 311 to get something repaired. And we have an email for trees that is trees@somervillema.gov that goes to the 3 arborists. So we're really happy that you care and that you spent your evening with us, and please continue to be in conversation with us.
Yeah, Bill, the meeting was recorded, and we will post it on the Summer Voice page so that people can go back to it if they want to. Thanks all. Guess we can probably wrap up. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I have the permission to do that now that I'm
Oh,
the
okay.
host.
Well, I'll stop sharing. And
I can end it for all.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Really appreciate you being here. Have a great night.